This is the World Innovators Podcast with your host, Donna Peterson. Today, I am very excited because I am talking with Kim Palmbush. She is a data governance expert. And boy, we have all been hearing about data in the media. As a company, you have to be concerned about the data you are holding in-house, the data you might be adding to your databases, and what you're doing with the information you have and how you're protecting it. But before we get started, my name is Donna Peterson, and you're listening to the World Innovators Podcast. I'm going out and I'm talking with business owners and marketing executives all over the world about issues that they're having, what might be happening in their industry, what tactics work and what doesn't work, so that we all can do quality business initiatives going into 2022. So let's jump in. Hi, Kim. How are you today?
Good, Donna. How are you? And thanks for having me.
Oh, you are welcome. I am good, except it is cold here in Connecticut. So
here too in Chicago. Yeah, here too in Chicago.
Do you have snow?
We did, not as much. You know, I have relatives that live on the West Coast out of Seattle, and they had like 20 inches a couple of weeks ago. We're usually the ones getting the snow, and they're getting more rain over there. But yeah, we've had a little snow, but it's been mostly really cold, really cold.
Yeah. We weren't bad, you know, we were kind of unseasonable between Christmas and New Year's, and then this week it snapped. And yesterday, I think it was my daughter who was coming back from a dinner, and she's like, it was 3 degrees out. The car like didn't even want
yeah. I like to walk too a lot, you know, during lunch breaks and stuff like that. I'm like, one day I was out there going, I don't think this is going to work. I think I'll get back. You know, it's just, yeah, there's a couple of days with the wind, especially. It's just a bit much. Yeah.
Oh gosh, yeah. And you can't go with those cold temperatures and then add wind, you know. Oh, for love of Pete, that's just
yeah, it's too much. Even your big North Face coats or anything like your big coats just aren't gonna totally keep you, warm there.
Yeah. Well, like I mentioned at the beginning, the reason why I really wanted to talk to you is because I am always talking to companies, you know, about their databases, about the lists that they hold in-house. How do they keep them cleaned and updated and compliant? And I really thought no one was better to talk to than you about this topic. So I wanted to hear what you tell companies about their database.
Sure. No, thanks for the opportunity to chat with you today about data governance, because I think it's incredibly important for companies to deal with. And we'll talk more about how to implement it, you know, here in the coming few minutes. But, you know, the need for high quality first party data is becoming more prevalent than it ever did before, because we have more complex data privacy regulations. And now with what Google and Apple are doing and other aspects of our world, they're walling off or allowing audiences to wall off new advertising to them, right? I can go onto my Apple and I can just check and say, stop sending me advertisements and stuff. So they're allowing the consumer more of an ability to just shut you off. Yeah. So the first party data that you're getting from them that you might be using and contacting them with, it has to be more high quality. Yeah, you know, we've gotten used to scraping websites and doing a lot of stuff like that and getting that kind of data that's not necessarily going to help you when you go to a publisher, when you have a client that wants to advertise and hit a certain constituency. So if your data is not of high quality and you say, for example, you want to target people that wear size 14 jeans, you just want to target size 14 jeans. And you end up, because your data is not in good quality, you end up targeting everybody but people that wear size 14 jeans. They're going to lose faith in you, your reputation. They're not going to want to be a loyal client. It takes that quality data so that you know your data, you know that your data is going to be targeting the people that they're asking to target. So it's really about reputation to me. I mean, there's a lot of data aggregators in the world. There's lots of data people in the world, tons of data people that aggregate data. If you can't trust their data, and if you're one of those people that aggregates data and sells it to a third party, list rentals, and they can't totally trust your data, it's gonna prove to be an uphill battle. I always say in data, once people lose trust in data, it's very hard to get it back.
Yep. Well, I'm up against that all the time because I do help companies find good quality data. And, I have CEOs that say, no way, it doesn't work. And I'm like, you know what? I agree it doesn't work if it's not done properly. And
Right.
like you said, if you can't find good targeted data, then don't do anything at all because you'll tarnish your brand. And really what you're trying to do with every marketing that you do, you want to enhance your brand and you want to get more leads. But if you're not reaching the right people that will resonate with what you have to offer, then don't bother.
Then don't bother. I mean, you can send out something and just insult a bunch of people.
Yeah.
Let's just face it. You can insult a bunch of people and then, it's going to get around. I mean, in this day and age of Yelp and Google reviews, and people are not shy about going out there and going, look what they did.
Yeah.
They're sending me thousands of emails a day and, shut me off, whatever, it can get that way. I mean, we're in that environment now.
Yeah.
Where everybody's got the phone, everybody's got the ability to put a review out there, and you have to not just protect your clients and make sure you're targeting well for them, but protect the constituency that is giving their information to you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Make sure that you treat them with respect, and that they'll keep wanting to give you more information if they know that you're treating it well.
It's all about right now, I say relationship building is the new marketing. And the whole way that you're able to build a relationship with an individual is first, you got to know who you're talking to,
Right.
and then you have to talk
Right.
to them about things that are of interest to them. And if they see that you're taking that time, and yes, it does take time and it takes some money too, to make sure you target the right people with the right messaging. But when you do that, that's when you can get those great response rates that you're looking for. You then enhance your database because you know exactly who's on it, because then you can send your content all around those people and build that relationship that instills trust. And when you instill trust in an individual, you get those customers that buy from you year after year.
Oh, absolutely. And even when you go to events or anything like that, your reputation is going to precede you, that you take care of. If you're collecting data at events and things like that, it's going to precede you. Yeah, they take care of my data. I get targeted ads, and yeah, they've targeted me with things that actually mean something to me instead of just inundating me with a flurry of emails. And, I'm not here to judge how marketing really works. I'm just simply saying that if you have quality data, right? That, because we all know we've all filled out forms. And sometimes we put in crappy data in there, just because we don't want to be bothered with it. Let's just get rid. Okay, I'm just going to fill out. I'm going to call not Kim Palmbush. I'm going to say Kim Bush, and I'm going to give him a bad email address. All that stuff. If you don't have the quality checks around that to say, yeah, this is really not very good, or they check off a bunch of stuff that they like and they really don't. There's things you have to be able to have quality checks to know. Yeah, here's a really solid group of contacts, or these are kind of iffy, and do I have the money or the ability to maybe go figure them out a little bit more? Can I contact them and say, hey, you did fill this out. Can I get a little bit more information? And, maybe offer them a $25 gift certificate, or you do something to give them that incentive to get some better information from them, right? Scraping the internet is definitely a thing people do these days, and I understand it. I do understand it. But given the privacy things that are going on, especially when you're in the GDPRs internationally, Canada is very stringent, GDPR, and UK, we have become tighter. California is going to have some even more new rules coming in 2023, and Virginia and Colorado have a lot of rules. So it's starting to take a lot of foothold. And again, especially with Google and Apple putting in some of their walling up those gardens, if you will, allowing consumers much more ability to shut you off. You really need to take care of them, if they're giving you data.
So then I would think someone like yourself, with your knowledge, you're going to be in very high demand, because everyone needs someone in their background to help them out with this, because like clients, I'll have clients saying, oh, I got 500 names here from a trade show. I'm going to put them in our database. And I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. There's things you have to do first. Just because those people handed you a calling card or stop by your booth, that doesn't mean you add them into your database and there you go.
Yeah, yeah. It's a great question and a great topic to bring up. You know, when we were talking about that question a little bit, I had like two parts to it. The first part was, if you're going to load data, whether you've collected it in an event or you've collected it from an aggregator or anybody else, the first thing you should make sure that you're not violating any privacy policy, any regulation somewhere, right? You know, I've dealt with one where we bought a list from somebody, and when you sign the terms and conditions or of buying the list, one of the terms said you were not to be using this data outside of your company, meaning you couldn't rent it out, right? And if we're going to blend it into our systems, you know, and start renting it out, then we are in violation of what we said, you know, and they could definitely put you on the hook for that. So I would just make sure that you have the rules and regs that you're allowed to use the data. There's plenty of companies that enrich data, you know, and make sure that they're allowing you, when you use their enrichment data, that they know that you're using that data possibly to do third-party rentals and things like that. As long as they're aware of that and that you're not putting their data out as your own data per se, right? You know, you're just enhancing your list. But again, I don't want to beat up that thing, but just make sure your rules and regs wise, you're not on the hook for something using that data outside to a third party or outside of your own, you know, your own business.
But it's funny, people.
The other part,
people will say to me,
please.
"Oh, but everybody does it." Well, that doesn't mean it's okay. And there are seeds on these lists that people have to be aware of. That if that individual gets the promotion, that's when they're going to file their claims, and the penalties assessed can be quite hefty.
They absolutely can. I mean, I'll tell you a very quick story. I talked to a company not too long ago where they wanted to scrape data, right? And scrape data and third-party data. Great. Bring it in, unknowns to knowns kind of thing. And he said, well, you know, these other bigger companies, I won't name them all, but some of these huge media companies, you know, in the Googles and that kind of realm, they do this all the time, Kim. And I just flat out said to him, yes, they can take a big hit if they get fined.
Yeah.
You know, smaller companies can't. So that's why I think sometimes smaller companies need to be even that much more vigilant about what they're doing with their data, so that they don't get hit with, you know, huge fines and anything else going on within their structure.
And if you're a small company and your domain gets blacklisted, you're shut down, you know?
Absolutely.
And it takes a while to get, and it takes a while to get off those lists, because I have had vendors who got put on the list. They shouldn't have been, because everything did check out. And by the time we went through everything, you know, they were cleared. But it's a process. It's almost a full-time job almost to clear your name after they've blacklisted you. And so you're right. People have to be careful.
Be careful about that. The other part of ingesting a list for me is, you know, and I try to set up governance rules, is to profile that list first, right? If you're looking to ingest it and weave it into your ecosystem, I call it, right, your databases or whatever, then make sure that you either identify it, you know, and I've seen CRM systems that do this, where they at least identify that it's a third-party list, so that they can easily exclude it if they have to, right? You make sure you either identify it appropriately when you ingest it, so that you can exclude it out if there's something happens, right, with it. Or if you're trying to weave it in, I always say profile it up front and see, okay, did they send me this list and half the states are missing if I'm doing an address stuff, or all the zip codes are missing, or they didn't give me the names of the cities. I mean, I'm using broad examples, but look at that stuff before you ingest it, because once you, especially if you have woven it into your data, your other data, that's massively hard to unwind.
Yeah.
So my suggestion always is, if you're going to ingest these lists, make sure they're identifiable so that you can easily pull them back out. You know, many times I've heard over the years, they sent me this list of phone numbers and half the phone numbers were not good. They were disconnected. You know, don't be afraid to go back to your data aggregator and go, you know, you just sent me this list and
Oh yeah.
a lot of it doesn't work, and what, you know, because you're paying for that to have that ability. So yeah, those are the two key things: know your regulations and just profile the data a little bit, and be careful about how you ingest it in so that you can easily either segregate it off or do something so it's not, you know, it's not messing up your data, the data, maybe the really clean data you already have in your system.
Those are two excellent suggestions, because like you said, you get a list in, review it first. If you start to see a lot of missing fields or maybe information not in the right fields, that can give you a kind of an idea of the quality of the file that you have. And then I always like taking a sampling and checking it first. You know, the emails of like 10 or 20, make sure, are they delivered? You know, do the phones actually work? You know, is the postal, you obviously said a little postal will take a little bit longer, but it's important, especially like what you said, if you're going to add it into your database. But always, the second part I love, and I've done this before with clients of mine, we'll enter a list and we'll enter it as list A, but then maybe it will still be part of the main database, because if at any time I want to remove those people, I can easily take that whole segment out and remove it from the file.
Right, absolutely, absolutely. Because it something could happen if you're just allowed to use that list for only 2 months, and you have to get out of your system. You know, they demand that you delete it out of your system.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's clearly goes to even the things about do not sells and delete my information, which is part of privacy rules. Right. You have to be able to have an ability to remove information easily from your system.
Yeah. And then that's where I also find that if you can, segmenting your database is great, because this is where you can start sending very specific content to these individuals. So for instance, let's say you're an association, but you have some students, and then you have some people who are actual members. And maybe with the members, you know, whether they're male or female, you know, that opens you up to doing some great marketing initiatives that are very specific for that individual. Thus, they'll want to open it. So
right. If you understand what you're marketing to, right, you absolutely, you know, can you fill in with these guys, or is there data that might give you more clue in? Absolutely. Data is fabulous for business intelligence, right? It's fabulous. Good quality data is really fabulous for business intelligence, because it'll help you with strategic directions. It'll help you with your clients if they really want to target somebody. And again, if the client feels like you're really taking care of them, and you're really, we did this last campaign and man, it was like 80%, or we got 60, 65% even good returns on it. You know, they're going to keep you, they're going to look to you every time, because they're going to say, these people came through for me. I'll tell you a very quick story. There's a company that I worked with that does data cleansing, appending emails, appending phones, all this stuff. And the one key thing is their customer service was phenomenal. If you called them up and said, you know, hey, we just did this group, and you know, you expected like a 65% return on the email appends, I only got 40. I'd be like, oh my gosh, what went wrong? We'll go research it. And then they'll come back and go, you know, Kim, we're going to knock off some money off that because we thought it would be better. That's fantastic customer service. And then every time you go back to them and you look at their data, and their data was not, it was a little bit better than some and not worse than anybody else of data appenders, because let's face it, guys that are going to append phone numbers and emails, they're going to give you the best that they can get, right? They can't necessarily give you perfect. No data appender can. But that to me was customer service, because they cared. I've worked with a couple of them like that. They say, oh yeah, okay, sorry, Kim, instead of $50 per thousand, we'll cut it down to 25 per thousand, because you know, we know that we thought we'd have a better return on that. It's fantastic, and I look to that a lot when I'm working with data, especially data append organizations.
You know, and those are the people who understand, you know, quality marketing. And right now, more than ever, I think businesses, as I mentioned before, is about building relationships, but you need that quality data. And the vendors who understand about helping you out, you know, because I'll talk to some of my clients and I'll say, well, I recommend this list, but let's test it out. If it's not working, we'll tweak it. And I said, because you got to understand, these vendors know that if you get a good response rate, you'll be back.
Right.
They're not here to
Right.
do one big massive sale and see you later, we'll never talk to you again. They want you to
Right.
come back year after year after year. And,
Mhm.
you know, most of my clients I've had for over 15 years, you know, because I'm not going to sell you on this one big sale that's going to make me a lot of money. I rather work with you on small increments so that you get those quality initiatives that really help your business grow year after year. And that sounds
Right.
like exactly what you're saying here when it comes to data.
Right. And we talked, I think, on a previous podcast about data appenders. And I've often said, you know, don't hesitate to ask them questions.
Mhm.
Never hesitate to ask them questions. I mean, this is why I like this one guy, because he would say, this one company, because he would say, we only expect a 30 to 40% response rate append on it. Okay, then we're not going, oh, we're going to get everything, you know, and go, oh, I gave you 1,000 contacts and you only gave me, you know, 300 of them back. Well, we really only expected a 30%, you know, response rate. So this is the kind of stuff, and know how they get it. You know, they should be able to. They may not tell you the algorithms and everything that they're doing, but they should be able to go, yeah, well, we go to the Social Security rules to look for deceased.
Right.
And then if it's not there, then we look at LexisNexis, we look at, and we can aggregate it that. So they at least can give you some directions to what they're doing, and not just lobbing stuff on you. But never be afraid to poke, I use the term poke a data appender, and ask them where they're getting their data, how they're compiling it. Again, they don't have to give you their trade secrets, but they should be able to say, well, we just go, we might go scrape, and we got, this is like some appenders that do like how many people bought a truck in that household, things like that. You know, these are things that you can ask them questions on, and don't be afraid to. Don't just trust what they lob at you. Don't be afraid to just ask questions and go, yeah, you know, that they said 30 to 40. Okay, we can live with that. You know, that'll at least give us some good leads out of this. Okay, great. Yeah. It helps you make better decisions with your data.
And I think most of the companies out there want to be as transparent as possible, you know, because nowadays, if you are transparent, you know, there's less issues of conflict. You know, people aren't going to come back screaming because you already told them everything. You know, you were straight out honest. You know, we're not going to be able to attach everything, all the data to every single record. There's no possible way. You know, we're going to be able to get as close to it, but all I know is that data that you do append is going to be accurate.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
Because the otherwise, if someone comes back to you and says, oh, we can do 100%, well, that's a red flag for me.
Oh, it would be me too. If they said they could do 50, I'd still be scratching my head a little bit. But again, it depends on what they're appending. If they're doing like address appending, because it's USPS, especially in the United States, you know, they should be able to give you some reasonable. That should be up in the higher category there. But if they say I can get you emails or phone numbers, you know, they're doing the best they can based on, you know, they're just doing the best they can based on whatever scraping they're doing or whatever they're looking at, through phone rolls or whatever. But there are rules around the phones and emails out there now too. People need to realize there are privacy rules around a lot of that stuff too. So
yeah, you're right. Well, I know when I was looking at it before we had our interview, I wanted to look at what the definition is for data governance. And I'm going to read this. It is a collection of processes, roles, policies, standards, and metrics that ensure the effective and efficient use of information. Now, I'm sorry, that sounds quite overwhelming, you know, as maybe a CEO who has a billion other things to handle. What do you think are some great steps that a company can take, no matter the size of their company?
Right. And, you know, when you say that whole big sentence paragraph you were doing, I mean, I could collectively hear people, you know, go, oh, or roll their eyes. Oh my God, you know. Yeah. You know, and I've been thinking about this question, you know, actually for the last few weeks, because I think data governance tends to be the big boogie man in the room. They don't, and I think in a lot of CEOs' minds, money, lots of money, and it's not. So, you know, I must say, you know, in kind of putting some answers together about this today, the first thing I want to say about data governance is, it is not a 1,000-pound manual that sits on somebody's desk with a bunch of rules and regs in it. You want to eventually document your policies so people understand it, and you want to be able to socialize those policies to people, right? But technology is going to help you with that. Technology will help you with that. But to me, first and foremost is identifying the business need for the governance. Now, there are some mandatory business needs you have to have, right? Privacy policies. If you're dealing with selling contact data, you have to have do not sells, unsubscribes, things like that. That's, there's some standard policies around that. But the other big policies when you get into the data governance realm of data quality, metadata, data security, things like that. And let's touch on data quality for a second, is go back and talk to the business. Talk to the people that actually deal with the data day in and day out. Ask them where their pain points are at. What is the problem? Oh, Kim, I have to do a once a month report to this client, and yes, we're handling their stuff okay, but when I download the data, I have to spend 3 hours cleaning it up before I actually can give them a report. And I'm like, why are you cleaning up that data? It's like, should the data be okay in the system? And you might want to put your own tweaks to it, your own, put the cherry on the top a little bit to it. But if you have to go in there and clean out and remove and do and get, then to me, there's a problem with that.
Yeah.
There really is, right? So my first and foremost thing is just sit down. Doesn't cost money. Just sit down. Data governance to me, and Donna and I have talked about this a little bit on the side, it's not expensive. It really isn't expensive. The first thing you do is sit down and decide what your strategy is around it. Again, you have your mandatory items, and what are the other items that we've been talking about today about first quality data, right? First party, high quality data, right? Making sure that you have good, solid data. How do you bring in data lists that are good data that you're not, messing up your system? How do you work that in? Talk about the strategy of endpoint. You bring the data in. What are you doing? Do you sell it? Do you rent it? Do you do advertisements for your clients? What do you do with that data? How do you collect the data if you're a company that collects data through forms?
Yeah.
How do you collect the data? I mean, I'll throw one out there like suffix. Somebody's suffix, junior, senior. Some companies I've seen use the text field. So you're going to get every way of somebody putting a suffix in, which makes it that much harder to compile that. I want all the guys that are seniors there. I want all the guys that are juniors. I want all the guys that are thirds.
Right. Yeah.
It's that's much harder to compile. So that's the key. And that key then will let you determine the decision about what kind of software you might need to help you manage that stuff, right?
Right.
Software is not the first answer. There's plenty of companies out there and a lot of good companies that do data governance and data management that are terrific. But that's probably the first thing they're going to ask you if you bring them in the door is, what are you trying to solve?
Right.
What are you trying to do? And do that first. Then you're in that much better position to talk to some of these software companies and go, here's what we want to do. This is all we need to do. We don't need to do this big thing, but keep yourself open enough to be agile and be able to grow with that, right? So I kind of get on that, I don't know if I get on a tangent on it, but to me, that's the key. It really is the key.
And I think that's an important key, like you said, start with a small segment and then work your way out there. And it shouldn't be that overwhelming for you to get started. So I don't want to hold you much longer. I know I probably already held you longer than expected, but this was great because hopefully people will watch this podcast. They'll get some great ideas so that going forward, they can really start to have a clean database, but everything they add to the database will only enhance its quality. It won't tarnish it in any way, and thus will improve their response rates, which will, help them grow as a company. So I want to thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you, Don. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about it, data governance today. Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a good day.
Thank you for listening to the World Innovators Podcast. For more information about today's topic, email us at dpeterson@worldinnovators.com or call 860-210-8088. And please make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a future episode.